Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video we'll be talking about obviously these two large snowstorms that most people have been talking about. You've probably heard it all over the news. And again, these look to be pretty impactful, bringing snow very far to the south from coast to coast, the west coast to the east coast, and there's going to be two of them. The first one we have more confidence on. The second one seems a bit more uncertain. The track is a bit more iffy. But a lot of snow, a lot of cold, a lot of ice, and potentially historic amounts across certain areas in terms of snowfall. So let's get into this. If you guys would like to support this channel, you can do so by subscribing and liking the video. If not, if you don't want to, hopefully I'll be able to convince you. Otherwise, let's get into this. Okay, so I want to start off by looking at the National Weather Service Weather Ready Nation map. And notice that we have a lot of advisories, a lot of watches, a lot of warnings, and this isn't fully updated because we do have now winter storm watches across Indianapolis and into Cincinnati, Columbus, and I know that because if I were to look at my local radar, we see that these watches have been expanded, just not updated on here yet. Again, there's just so much coverage regardless that probably I would say a majority of the United States population is under some sort of winter weather-related event, either from lake effect, from the cold, or from these powerful snowstorms, or even the ones that have already been ongoing for the past several weeks. And this one was just a prior one. So let's get into this and start talking about this. In terms of the radar, I did show you this already, but let's turn off these winter advisories and just to show you what's been going on across the country. Some lake effect, right? Notice a bit of snow across the northeast and a bit of ice and rain across the south. Now, I don't know if you heard what happened yesterday across Texas, but there was a massive pileup of cars. I think there was over 100 vehicles involved. The casualties, I'm pretty sure, are in the double digits right now. So just a terrible accident, and it was a result of the freezing rain. There wasn't that much of it, but it was just enough to cause drivers to spin out and obviously cause a lot of issues. And again, hopefully that doesn't happen again. People will be a bit more careful, maybe not go out at all, as they saw what happened. The required weather conditions will definitely be compatible to see, more of those accidents, as there will be a lot of ice, more snow. But it's oftentimes those little events that produce more ice or more accidents than the big ones, because if you have an ice storm warning plastered across Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, people there are going to be like, okay, oh shoot, this is the ice storm warning, we should probably stay indoors and not mess. If it's just an advisory, which there was yesterday for Texas, yes, it calls for concern. People are just a bit usually less careful, less weary of those things. And, a lot of folks across the south don't have four-wheel drive or cars that are suitable for, say, maybe the snow and ice. And across the north, they're more accustomed to that, but still, accidents from the smaller events are way more common. And ice is ice. No matter what car you have, most likely will slip if you catch under it. Obviously, this is, a little bit of light snow across the Midwest today. That could form a bit of rain and snow across the Northeast tomorrow, combined with that precip. But our big event right now is across the Northwest. Notice that Washington, Oregon, seeing lots of rain. It's just moving in to the coast, so you can see that there are some locations still staying dry, but you can see Boise into Idaho seeing snow. This may be underrepresented, and it probably is, as the radars here are, dealing with massive mountains, one of the biggest mountain ranges in the world, aside from, in terms of height, the Himalayas. And, this will obviously cause some shortages, areas that don't have radar coverage. But look at that, Seattle's starting to pick up some snow. Olympia, Longview, Portland seeing a mix depending on where exactly you live. And let's start talking about this. GFS, let's take a look at pivotal weather. And the reason I'm looking at pivotal weather, not tropical tidbits, is because I want to look into Kuchera, and that will be very applicable with this event, as most of the snow, even across the south, will be falling in very cold conditions. Now, yesterday I underestimated some of the cold weather that the snow will be falling at, and I said that it will be closer to a 10-to-1 ratio. And while that will be true for maybe the beginning phases of the system, or for just a brief period, it really looks as if a lot of these ratios will quickly jump to 20-to-1 potentially across Texas. Maybe not as fluffy as across the Midwest, where there's, negative digits. 19, 20 degrees, that's a fluffy snow. That's whatever way you put it. And salt really starts losing its effectiveness quick. If you live across the south, I don't know if you may know this or not, but once the temperature gets down to 19, 18 degrees Fahrenheit, salt loses about 3/4 of its efficiency. It may be even higher than that. And based on observations, what I saw yesterday was 20 degrees. It snowed. There was just a little bit of melting from the salt, and that was about it. Notice GFS, right? Notice that what we see is that little light snow event. We see a lot of potential rain and mix kind of going on across the northeast. Not heavy in amount, but it could be a bit more widespread than represented on here. We have a very huge polar high, again, bringing very dangerous cold, so to stay bundled up, stay warm, and tough it out there across the north. I know we've been dealing with it for a while, and especially across the Dakotas and Minnesota and southern Canada. It will continue for a bit, and obviously that causes the system that moves across the northwest to go to the south. It doesn't move, north or just west to east. It goes from the north to the south, and really, I should say, northwest to the southeast kind of fashion. A lot of these systems often weaken through the mountains. This one not necessarily strengthens, but it definitely does not weaken. And you can see a lot of the moisture stays in the mountains, a dumping of snow. That's good. They're in a drought. They need that. Though again, those good things may come at a price. Avalanche warnings may be hoisted again for portions of the Rockies, especially across Colorado, where the snowpack is already rather thick in some locations. I wouldn't say it's above average. Notice that into say late Saturday, early Sunday, we start seeing snow spill across the panhandles, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas. Now, this snow, again, will start a bit as a rain-ice mix maybe towards the south. But notice, it's just so cold, it most likely won't have any issues transitioning, if it even has to transition in the first place. Oklahoma, Texas, the northern locations will start as snow and stay as snow. Notice that by early Monday morning, this is late Sunday, very early Monday, it spills into Dallas, San Antonio, right? Austin, potentially. And the ice is well into the Houston area. A lot of it. Not just some, a coating, not just a little bit of black ice. It could be, complete covering, a complete layering of ice. And this is where things start getting interesting. You can see that we have the remnant cold front that stalled out and is continuing to bring precip across the south. This thing combines with this system and kind of creates a two-pronged event. We have our first event across Ohio, Pennsylvania. I shouldn't say event. It's all the same storm, just two little waves. You can see it's more light, right? A bit further to the north and west with that rain-snow line. And notice that Ohio, Indiana see some light snow as early as Monday morning. We do see a bit of a break. And notice, right, this wave is a bit further towards the south and east, just by a smidge. So you can see that a lot of kind of Kentucky was under even, say, central Kentucky right there was under the ice. They will now be with this band under snow. And notice that this pushes into the northeast. And look at that. The I-95 corridor is put under ice and sleet, not snow. Again, this is one model. This could vary either to the north or to the south. Trends are that it's probably going to be further to the north. Still, though, that's going to be treacherous. You can see all the ice falling, all that snow, and even if that does start off as ice or rain, it could transition over back to snow as it pulls away. So really a mess for the northeast as well. And notice lake effect off of Michigan and Superior kind of onto the western shores this time. So a bit of, again, a difference compared to the typical lake effect, which happens from a northwest to southeast fashion. That's from the first system, and notice that there's still more activity. Obviously, we have that second system, which some models show a pretty intense storm. Let's take a look at the winter weather and Kuchera. Again, warning, these amounts will be pretty high, okay? From this first system alone, notice pretty high amounts across the northeast where the snow does fall. Pennsylvania, Cleveland, right, Erie, upstate New York into Columbus, Indianapolis, Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas. You could see putting into Texas. 8, 10, 9 inches of snow, easily into the double digits across the panhandles. I think this may be even a bit underdone across some locations. And if that doesn't happen from the first storm, the second one will make sure that happens. Look at some of these amounts right there. Quite ridiculous. And the pattern does cease, and it does warm up a bit. No king rules forever. The cold air lightens up, and we start seeing the north add up good amounts of snow. You see this circle right here again. At this point out, this is very far out, but we'd for sure see a lot of more snow to the north rather than the south. Okay, that's the GFS model. Let's take a look at the Canadian. So I'll just time it out using the snowfall amounts. Here's our week system tonight across the Midwest, right? we start seeing that northwest giants barrel through the mountains and out into the plains. Look at that. The Canadian does bring generally decent amounts of snow, a bit less than the GFS. Still, many large cities, pretty far to the south, seeing over 6 inches. And it doesn't really bring any snow or any concern of snow anywhere near New York City, Hartford, Connecticut, the coastal areas. But it does bring snow into, say, more of southern Canada. Still, Cleveland, Erie, seeing more snow. Not so much Pittsburgh, which the GFS advertised more of a Pittsburgh scenario. Again, I would probably be leaning towards something more of the GFS, as it has done a pretty good job with the system thus far. Notice here's our second system, right? More towards, again, the north and west rather than coastal areas. And Michigan, Missouri sees a lot of snow out of this. You know, Indiana, Ohio, and southern Canada. My friends in southern Canada will also be seeing quite a bit. The large cities, you mean all of them. Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, Quebec, all lined up here. And then look at Texas, potentially Dallas, well over a foot of snow. So scary amounts, to be honest with you. If you were to take a look at the regional United States and zoom in on the Northwest, the Canadian shows good amounts, to say the least, across Seattle. 8 inches. Portland at almost 20, which probably is a bit overdone, but, you know, possibility. Going back to the GFS across the Northwest, I kind of skipped over that area. In terms of snowfall with the latest model run, let's take a look at it. Notice it shows Seattle, 9, 10 inches. Portland, again, up over a foot of snow, so that's pretty consistent. And let me just quickly show you the European. I will show you the European snowfall amounts further across the United States. But let me just, if I'm already zoomed in, show you the amounts here. Shows Seattle seeing 10 inches. Portland a bit less still, or over 6, 7 inches. Probably your biggest event since 2016, and maybe a bigger event than that one. So, you know, some of these models do show quite a bit. And the European doesn't like to overhype things, so when it shows these big amounts, it's usually a bit of a concern. Okay, let's look at the European. Let me just go on to precip type and rate. Again, here's our beast. A little bit of light snow tonight. Moves through the panhandles, little bouts of showers and snow maybe already a bit ahead of it. And then notice, two-pronged again. Bit of light snow, about 12 to 18 hours prior to the second wave, which will be more significant, more strong, and obviously bring in more warm air, so a lot of the areas across the coastal areas will be rain. And then we have our second system, which the European keeps a bit weaker. And I should say that it's a bit weaker until it reaches the northeast, and then it kind of explodes into a beast. But across the southern United States, it still brings snow for, say, Dallas, northern Louisiana, Oklahoma, Arkansas. And then that passes through. In terms of the European model, total snowfall, let's take a glance at it. This is assuming a 10-to-1, not a Kuchera. I don't have that option. You could still see very high amounts. So that's what the European puts out. Anything in the blue is 2 to 6 inches. Anything in a purple is 6+, and anything in that oranges or that red is 12 inches plus. Okay, that's a European. GFS version 16, a model that competes with the European for accuracy. Let's turn on the Kuchera. And let's let this roll through through the first event first. Just this one, you can see good amounts, even across Chicago, potentially from the lake effect. Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas. I mean, good amounts of snow, to say the least. Historic amounts, especially across Dallas and Oklahoma and the panhandles. And then the second one comes through, and you can see dumps even more snow according to the version 16 model. And you can see some snow starting to finally make its way into the northern United States after that polar vortex shifts off. In terms of the northwest, you know, generally the same amounts. Very, very high for Seattle and Oregon, Portland, Oregon. 2 major cities that I went over. Okay, so that's the GFS. In terms of the high-res models, say the HER model, this is a model that goes out 48 hours. Next 48 hours in terms of snowfall, this is what it shows. A bit further to the north, again, this is probably a bit of an overstatement. And the HER model, honestly, I would hope it would be more accurate for the short range it goes out to, but unfortunately it's not as accurate. Regardless, we have more models that we could look at, like the RAP. And you can see that it shows generally a similar scenario, right? Good amounts. And by the way, earlier I was saying just a few seconds ago about the HER that it's not as good. What it showed right there with the total snowfall amounts, we're pretty close to what I think will happen. It's just that I wouldn't, you know, really go specifically over the HER, as it's kind of like the RAP. They do a decent job, not as good as one would think with the high res model. And notice that in terms of snowfall, it does show a lot, and I think these amounts will be rather achievable, especially across Kansas and Nebraska, where it will be fluffy. Texas, though, shouldn't have a problem either. Let's take a glance at the model viewer. So this is what the National Weather Service is predicting. This is their official forecast, which usually is the best estimate one could get about a certain winter storm. Notice, this is put out in a model format layout on this website, weathermodels.com. And look what it shows, right? So a bit of snow across the Midwest today, 2 to 3 inches by the lakes, a bit heavier. Look at that, the West gets pummeled. Pretty high amounts of snow, and this is, not just limited to the higher elevations. You can see that's a bit more snow across Nebraska, but then it continues to add on, and quite quickly, we see very high amounts. Now, this isn't a model. This is what the National Weather Service is calling for. Widespread amounts, potentially over the double digits, so over 10 inches across Oklahoma, Oklahoma City, Texas. Dallas, for this, has 5 inches. Again, still snowing because you can see it's adding on, and it still hasn't occurred across the Midwest. So this is only 66 hours out. This is how much snow will fall. I think this is probably the best estimate out of all the models I've showed you, as this is the National Weather Service's thinking. Okay, if you were to take a look at some of these cities, say Oklahoma City, and take a look at the snowfall forecast, it's quite astounding. 8 to 12 inches widespread, not just limited to Woodward or Clinton, like we've seen many times before this winter, but further to the south and east, also very heavy amounts. The panhandle of Texas. Look at this, major impacts. Extreme would be a, there probably will be some areas labeled that, but that's usually preserved for the extreme cases, hence the name. Snowfall, very heavy, 7 to 10, 5 to 7. I mean, just really, really, really good amounts of snow. Dallas, a bit more uncertain, but, okay, see it right there. This shows it as a storm watch, and now it's as a warning when I click on here. So this is the more accurate version. It has been updated. You will see a bit of freezing rain, freezing drizzle, but the snow will eventually fall. The winter storm watch, which they still haven't updated this, it's in the process of updating, calls for 4 to 6 inches. Again, there could be amounts much higher than that. And again, I'm just showing you amounts that already I showed you on here. And in the next 66 hours, this is what they're showing. Okay, taking a look at the ensembles regarding the first system, this is the European. And the European, I would think, has done a better job, but you can see that it shows more of a lighter type scenario. Obviously, this is assuming a 10 to 1. Still a bit of jumping around. And even, this is the first one. This is the next 5-day snowfall forecast. Doesn't encompass the second one. And you can see decent amounts, obviously, but not as high as one would think. Now, this is the next system, and the European models on this one are a bit more lost than usual. You could see some show something like that, way to the coast. Some show it further off, and then some show it, quite a bit further, or a completely different type of characteristic of a storm. And the further we go with these ensembles, they just, continue to differ. Again, as of now, just National Weather Service is your best source. Keep an eye to the sky. Keep an eye on these weather models. They will be producing more data and more info as we come through. For those wondering what the NAM, for example, NAM 12KM is showing, this is what it shows. Again, a lot of this is inaccurate, as this is including sleet and not just the positive snow depth change, which is an option here, which you could look at. Yeah, this is something more accurate in terms of snow. It does advertise pretty heavy amounts, which may be a bit overdone. Regardless, lots of snow, lots of cold. The pattern does look to be breaking in the long term, so more warmth will be coming, and probably quite quickly, as this is pretty late into the winter. So that snow will be pretty quickly gone from those locations. All right, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you all guys on the next episode. See ya. Bye.